Rev up your engines!
Putting nitrogen in your tires. You know, they're always trying to sell me a machine that makes nitrogen. It doesn't make it. It takes it out of the air and concentrates it so it's 100%. And then, oh, your tires are going to last longer. Don't fall for this crap. To begin with, the air we breathe is like 80% nitrogen to begin with. So the only thing you're changing is 20% of the other stuff, right? Theoretically, it doesn't leak out as much. It doesn't change that much with pressure. The only reason I would tell anybody to put nitrogen in their car, if you never ever check your tire pressure, it will stay inflated at the right pressure longer and colder temperatures than if you use regular air. But understand this, the regular air is already 80% nitrogen. So you're only messing with the other 20%. So whatever you save is such a tiny little fraction. It makes sense for jet airplanes. Why? Because jet airplanes, when they take off, they're up in the stratosphere, right? It's real cold up there. So the temperature difference between up there and then when they land, the pressure will change more than it will with air. It's still 80% nitrogen in your tires, right? But these guys are always trying to say, you need to put nitrogen in your tires. You know, then anytime you fill it up with air, you got to find a nitrogen place. You can't use regular air, right? Or then you're defeating the purpose of what you started in the first place. It's just one of the dumbest things people ever came up with, really, when it comes down to it. You still only have 20% more nitrogen than the regular tires. It doesn't make all that much. It's a fraction of a difference when it comes to tire pressure. It's a stupid thing to let anybody sucker you into. You need nitrogen for your tires. Now, if you're a race car driver, yeah, you're going 200 miles an hour, they get real hot, pressure differential's a little bit less, it's more of an inert gas. So really, for a normal human being, driving a speed limit of 60 miles an hour, you're pissing your money down the toilet trying to buy nitrogen in your tire and think it's going to really help things out. It won't do hardly anything at all except take money out of your pocket. Bucky says, I bought a Subaru 86 wagon off of Facebook. Now, my friend drove it, but it wasn't legal to drive, so he towed it to my place. It won't start. There's power at the starter, but no dash, no starter click, nothing. He said there's power at the starter. What you want to do is get a long extension bar and a socket that fits on the bolts on the front of the engine, the front crank, where all the fan belts drive in the bottom. Try to turn the engine over at least a complete revolution, 360 degrees. If it won't turn, your engine's locked up. Subaru engines are, and that old 86 probably got it really cheap because the engine's shot, right? Pray it's something else. If you can turn it over, then you know the engine at least isn't locked up. And if that's the case, the starter gets power, but it won't do anything. Try to jump start it. If that doesn't work, replace the starter. But first, check to see if you can turn the engine over. If you can't turn it over with a long bar and a socket, the engine's locked up and you just bought a pile of junk. I'm sure you didn't pay much for it. It's 86. You got it on Facebook. Probably need an engine. You got to decide you want to put that kind of money into old junker like that, or just say goodbye and sell it as a parts car if it's not all rusted out. MBEck187 says, I have a 2012 Nissan Altima. I've only put 25,000 miles on it. Should I keep it? I'm tempted to get a used Highlander after watching you talk about it. All right, well, you only got 25,000 miles. The Altimas aren't that bad. They generally don't have real problems till they get 90, 100,000 miles or more. If you drive that little bit of mileage, what the heck? Because if you want to get a used Highlander, the prices of those used Highlanders, some people pay more for the used Highlanders than new ones. They're extremely expensive. It's a much better made car. There's no arguing that. But you only got 25K on that thing. Sometimes it's better to deal with the devil you know than paying a whole bunch of money for another vehicle. But on the other hand, everybody's buying everything. If you could sell that Altima for good money with that low mileage, go ahead. But realize you're going to buy Highlander. You're going to pay up the nose differential. You're going to pay a ton more for that. Everybody wants them and they cost a fortune, even used. Loose Static says, is there any way to stop or slow down the Scion TC from burning oil? Okay, if you got one of those engines that's burning oil, unfortunately it's the piston rings. There's really nothing that can fix. You can change the PCV valve. If it's stuck open, it'll burn oil. But I know it's because they didn't build the engines right. You'd have to put another engine in to fix it, or put new piston rings to rebuild the engine, which costs a fortune. But if you want to try the old school, you're not supposed to do it much, but if it does burn a lot of oil, what the heck? Put some of that Lucas oil additive, the thick stuff. Put it in instead of a quart of one of your regular quarts when you change the oil. It'll slow it down a little bit. It's not really going to hurt an old worn engine like that anyways, but it could slow it down a little. Hey, says, once Scotty answers my question, I could die happy. My friend traded a 2012 Subaru Impreza for a 2009 E550 Benz. How dumb do you think he is on a scale of 1 to 10? Well, the E550 is a pretty luxurious car, right? They're endless money pits. There's no arguing that. But he might not be as dumb as you think. He might be able to sell that 550 Benz and make money. I've seen guys do that. A lot of people like Mercedes, they don't understand. They're not a mechanic like me. They don't understand that they're endless money pits. They cost a fortune to fix. They don't understand all that stuff. And he might be able to sell it. Now, if he's going to keep that thing for 10 years, he's an idiot. But if he's smart, if he's watching this, maybe he'll flip that car and make some serious money. You never know. Some people are dumb enough to pay high dollar for a used Mercedes. It's a big mistake, but there are people out there that'll do it. Kaizen said, Pebbles fell into my cabin air intake. Some pebbles fell into the air intake between the windshield. Will it cause problems? Can I get them out? Will it work its way to the cabin air filter? All right, you said they fell in there. What? I suppose there's a young kid around there who was playing and he threw pebbles in there. I see that all the time. One customer, they couldn't get their seatbelt in years ago. It wouldn't latch. I look inside, and what's inside it? Stuffed dimes in there. He found change and he threw them in there and it jammed inside. Luckily, it was old-fashioned, so I could take it apart and get the dime out. You know, dimes aren't magnetic, so you can't get them out with a magnet anymore. They're made out of cheap material. I've got it out and fixed it, but, you know, I'm assuming this kid probably threw pebbles in there. Now, they're not going to hurt anything per se because you got a cabin air filter. The only thing that could really hurt would be the motor and the valves past it, the actuator valves and all that stuff. But they would just land. Then you can take the cabin air filter out and throw the rocks away. It won't hurt anything. Now, getting them out, I mean, if you can reach in there with one of those little nozzle vacuums, you might be able to suck some of them out. It's not going to hurt anything, like you're saying, as long as you got that cabin air filter. Now, don't take the cabin air. Some people are cheap, and they say the cabin air filter clogs up all the time. I never had one. Maybe I'll take it out and leave it out. Well, if you do that, then the pebbles will eventually get in. They could destroy your blower motor. They get in the actuator motors and break them, so you don't want that. But as long as the filter's in there, check it every once in a while. Look for pebbles. They fall out when you take it out. Just be careful when you take the filter out, because if you pull it too fast, there's pebbles, then they're going to fall down into the motor. Then you have to take the whole thing apart to get to the motor to get the pebbles out. BB5225 says, light on, but I can't read the codes on my Ford. Got a 2003 Ford 250. I get a check engine light when I tow in heavy traffic. When I let up, the light goes away. We tried reading the codes, but it won't hold the codes. No one can read it. And it doesn't want to do it when I tow my trailer when it's empty. What should I do? Here's the odd thing. When that check engine light comes on, theoretically, your main computer, the PCM, ECM, whatever you want to call it, but the main computer module is supposed to remember everything. It's just supposed to. And if that light ever comes on, it doesn't matter if it's on and off, on and off. You get a good scan tool like I have as a mechanic, a 6500 on, when you hook it up, it'll show all the historical codes too. They will be there. If you're dealing with clown mechanics that are putting in a $50, $100 scan tool, okay, they might not work. Start with a real mechanic with a real scan tool. He should be able to get codes. Now, if he can't, then you got a computer problem, because the computer isn't holding the codes. They're supposed to. They're designed that way. So it could easily have a computer failure, that it gets the code up, but then it won't store it, because there's a problem with the computer. Now, you say it's only when you pull heavy weights. So it's probably something going on with strained under the heavy weights. It could be a transmission code. And like I say, you need a higher level scan tool. You're not going to read all the tranny codes with some cheap generic scan tool. So start there. Now, let's say you find a guy like me, or take it to the dealer and they say there's no codes, then you got to have some kind of computer failure problem, because it's not remembering the codes. Back in the day, pre-1995, when they had OBD1, yes, you had to have the light on or it wouldn't read a code. The light went off, there wouldn't be any code. There was basic systems. But these systems, the new OB2, they're supposed to memorize it all. So something's funky there. Well, here we go with old Elon Musk and Tesla. He has endless pockets. He assumes everybody else has. He just raised the prices of the Tesla again, and their cheapest model, the Model 3 this year, has already increased 20% in price. Now, has your salary increased? No, but he doesn't seem to care. He's the richest man on the planet. It's now $44,990 for their basic Model 3. You know, he's saying, oh, these cars are going to cost less than $40,000. Yeah. And then try buying one, see what the tax and everything, what it actually comes to. You could have got a Model 3 for 37 grand. Now that starts at $45,000. The Model Y performance went up to $62,990. You know, it's not like it's a radical car. It's just an SUV body instead of a car body. So they keep charging more and more, thinking that people have endless pockets. The guy's going to hit a wall, if he hasn't already hit a wall. Maybe he wants his market to be just ultra-rich people who don't care about money. There's people out there that buy Rolls Royces still, even though they're not all that well made. And you saw, they supposedly had a deal with Hertz that they're going to buy 100,000. Now he says, I didn't sign the contract yet because he wants to raise the prices. So I'm going to charge them the same as everybody else. So as he raised the price of this, he just raised all the price to Hertz too, because he didn't sign the deal right yet. The guy's just trying to make as much money as he possibly can. They're not that well-built vehicles. You pay all that money. I just say, do like Scotty says, vote with your money. Don't buy one of his things. You don't have to deal with the nonsense that he's trying to pull. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.